This is the reaction I made about 100 times during Spider-Man No Way Home.
What the?
Hey guys, it's Sean O'Connell, the managing editor here at CinemaBlend and our resident Spider-Man fanatic, and I am here for a spoiler-filled review of the new movie Spider-Man No Way Home. Needless to say, you cannot go into this video if you haven't yet seen the film, and if you haven't seen the film, what's wrong with you? It's already been out in theaters. Go, go, go right now. We're going to break down all the reasons why I think this is one of the best, if not probably the best, Spider-Man movie for very, very specific reasons right now. You're going to want to keep it here on our YouTube channel, so hit subscribe and turn on your notifications. You want to make sure you keep it right here on CinemaBlend for all of your Marvel, DC, and comic book movie needs. The number one reason why I am over the moon in love with Spider-Man No Way Home is the fact that it connects all of the dots that exist for Spider-Man. And by this I mean, this one movie makes the existing franchises here in the Spider-Man universe relevant, and I didn't think that that was going to be physically possible. By bringing back Tobey Maguire, by bringing back Andrew Garfield, and by coming up with a reason for their movies to exist in canon of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is simply mind-blowing. Of course, the concept of the multiverse allows you to say that there are reasons why there are other Spider-Man that would exist in other universes, but this physically means that I could go and pick up Sam Raimi's 2002 Spider-Man and put it into the DVD player and consider it the first movie, technically, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, in the MCU. And I can't believe that No Way Home successfully did that in a way that is satisfying for Spider-Man fans. It also gives closure to those actors because their franchises ended sooner than they anticipated. Tobey thought he was going to get a chance to do Spider-Man 4 and make up for the disaster that was the third Spider-Man movie. Obviously, the Amazing Spider-Man franchise got ripped out of Andrew Garfield's hands, and the failure of that franchise led to Sony allowing Marvel to borrow Spider-Man and cast him as Tom Holland in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So here you get a movie that is going back and correcting a lot of the mistakes that exist in Spider-Man's cinematic history, with the fact that Andrew, didn't really get to have any kind of closure for his inability to save Gwen, and the fact that fans were still kind of wondering how much Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker was able to coexist and build a life with his Mary Jane Watson. This movie answers all of those questions and gives us those emotional beats that we needed to land, and the fact that not only with the heroes, but even the villains, the fact that it gives closure to Otto Octavius and has that beautiful scene where Melina's Otto and Tobey Maguire's Peter are able to sort of reconnect with each other after all those years, and how Andrew Garfield was able to help Jamie Foxx's Max and sort of, rebuild him up from the way that he was in Amazing Spider-Man 2. That all of these moments are able to happen over the course of Spider-Man No Way Home is just, it's mind-blowing to me. I cannot believe that this movie exists, and not just that it exists, but that it works as well as it does. All of that being said, that happens without taking focus away from Tom Holland, who is still very much the center of this movie. We can't forget that, we're ultimately into the trilogy that is Tom Holland's Marvel Cinematic Universe run. And the danger of something like No Way Home is packing in all of these other elements, but overshadowing the fact that he is the main Peter Parker. But what I truly love about Spider-Man No Way Home, what makes it as special as it is that each of those decisions to bring those villains back, to have Tom Holland's Peter Parker interacting with the different villains and getting manipulated by Willem Dafoe's Norman Osborn, and then of course collaborating with the other two Spider-Men, is that all of those narrative decisions work in service of bringing Tom Holland's story forward, which is crazy to me, that you're not just bringing these characters in for nostalgic beats or playing a whole game of, hey, do you remember this? Or wasn't it cool when that happened? Which can be the victim of a lot of these movies that try to bring back nostalgia elements. And as an example, let me use Ghostbusters Afterlife, which really existed as two different types of stories in one film trying to interact together. The main story, which was of the new family and the young kids who were figuring out what was going on in the Ghostbusters world. But then you got to the end when the original Ghostbusters had to be brought into it. You say, hey, remember those guys? And they were important to this franchise. And it felt like a little bit of a tacked on scene. No Way Home does essentially the same thing, but does it so much better because it brings Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield into the story and has to have them interact with their previous villains and figure out a way to cure them so that they can literally go back home and not be put in a situation where they're going to die. The line that connects all this together is when Tobey Maguire essentially says to Tom Holland, this is what we do. You know, they've accepted the burden of being Peter Parker. They've accepted the burden of being the hero of Spider-Man. And all of those decisions form the type of Spider-Man that Tom Holland is going to become by the end of this movie. Because honestly, I think that this is the best performance that we've seen from Tom Holland, not just in a Spider-Man movie, but probably in any of his films. He's had a little bit of a hard time distancing himself from the character of Spider-Man, and I know that he's been really good in films like The Impossible and Cherry, but it does seem like the audience really wants to see him as Peter Parker. And in this film, he gets to really go to the emotional depths that come with being the tragic figure that is Peter Parker, right? The loss and the sacrifice and the amount of things that Peter has to do in order to protect the ones that he loves, to protect his secret identity, and to continuously do the right thing even when it's most difficult, allows Tom Holland to really tap into the sorrow and the drama that can come with his performance. He's also very funny. His interactions with the other Spider-Men is reverent and is kind of in a way where like he does view them as mentors. You could tell there's this fantastic moment when they hug and it's just like, I love you guys. And you could tell that that's like Tom Holland saying it to Andrew and to Tobey as the previous Spider-Man who blazed a trail and allowed him to become the Spider-Man that he is. All of that's reflected in Tom Holland's performance, which I just think is incredibly great and probably one of the best Marvel Cinematic Universe performances that we've seen in any of the MCU movies to date. I know I've been raving about this entire movie, but if I had to pick my absolute favorite moment in it, it was the final minute of the movie. Right from the time that we saw the fabric in the sewing machine signifying a homemade, comic-accurate Spider-Man suit that a depressed Peter Parker made in a dingy New York apartment and then took for a swing around snowy New York City. That was perfection. It was, you know, a courageous move to end on a downbeat, emotionally sad, but character relevant ending like that. Like, things aren't supposed to go well for Peter Parker. And MCU Spider-Man has had a couple of things go pretty well for him. You know, granted, he's seen his share of problems and lost his mentor and has had a couple of things go against him. But from the beginning, by being sort of the Iron Man Jr. And getting a souped up suit and being able to interact in a universe that has other Marvel superheroes going for him, set him apart from the types of Spider-Mans played by Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire. By the end of this movie, it's almost like Spider-Man is now ready to begin being Spider-Man. Like, he's in New York City, he's got his homemade suit, it's as perfect as can be, and because they allowed Doctor Strange's spell to come to its completion, it's kind of wiped away everything that we enjoyed in Homecoming and Far From Home. So fans got the best of both worlds. They did get a chance to see Spider-Man interacting with the Marvel superheroes in the MCU. They got to a place where logically it made sense, where now none of them remember who he is, and it has allowed Peter to go off on his own in that solo sort of independent way and forge his future moving forward with the weight of the world on his shoulders and the loss of everything in front of him, from his Aunt May to his best friend Ned to the love of his life, MJ. How is he going to go from this point on? I mean, it's a complete mystery, but I love where we are. I love where the movie left Peter. I think it was the perfect ending for not just this film, but for the first trilogy of Spider-Man films, and I can only hope that we get another trilogy that comes right after this. You could probably guess where I'm going with my final grade if you made it this far into the video, but this is a perfect 5 out of 5. It is the best Spider-Man movie that I've ever seen. I'm really comfortable saying that. If only because it is the most Spider-Man movie that I've ever seen. You know, is it a perfect film from start to finish? It's not a perfect film, but I think it's a perfect Spider-Man film. I think it delivers everything that a Spider-Man fan could ever want out of a story that would connect all of the Spider-Man things that we have been enjoying on screen since 2002. It pays proper homage to the past. It corrects a few of the mistakes that have been sort of lingering in the Spider-Man franchise. It makes the other series in the Spider-Man history relevant, and it delivers, again, one of the most amazing performances by any actor playing both Peter Parker and Spider-Man in the film. I mean, just the moment of the three Spider-Men figuring out how to work together and fight the array of Spider-Man villains at the Statue of Liberty, which happens to have a Captain America shield attached to it, I don't know what else you could possibly want after that. Like, there's that scene of the three of them landing on the Statue of Liberty's crown, and it's the three on-screen Spider-Man together for the very first time, and my face melted. There's just no other way for me to say that. It was everything. It was everything that I ever wanted to see. It was perfect. It will forever be my favorite Spider-Man movie. Perfect 5 out of 5. I loved everything about it, and I cannot wait to see it again. Now I want to hear from you guys. Head to the comments down below and let me know what you thought about Spider-Man No Way Home. I've been paying attention to social media, and so far the reviews have been extremely positive, but let me know what scenes you loved. Let me know what you really liked about it. If you found a couple things that didn't necessarily work for you, hit me up in the comments and let me know about them as well too. While you're down there, hit subscribe and turn on your notifications, and make sure you keep it right here on CinemaBlend, because we're going to be covering not just Spider-Man, but all of the things coming to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so you want to make sure that you read every single thing that we post.